Hi, my name is Grace and welcome back or welcome to my channel. For those of you who haven't been on my channel before, my name is Grace and I am a 23-year-old who is now living and working in Chicago. I'm an actor. I have degrees in acting and psychology as well as minors in dance and standardized patient training. And this video is basically going to just be me reflecting over my experience with going to and working at programs at NSLC or the National Student Leadership Conference. I have done a few other videos on this topic, but I did them a really long time ago. They've gotten a lot of views and were pretty well received, and so I figured that if this was a topic that people were wanting to know more about, I might as well do an update video, kind of like a where are they now situation, and explain my story and my experience with the program that I attended and then later worked at, in the hopes to give some of you guys who might be looking into going to NSLC some insight on their programs. So I do want to make a disclaimer right now that I only have experience with the program that I attended as well as then worked at for 3 years, and things have changed a lot. I went to the acting intensive program when I was a junior in high school, so that was over 6 years ago now, I believe, which is crazy to me. But that was in 2015. So I attended the NSLC acting intensive, the first one in 2015, and it was a 21-day program, and then I took a year off. I didn't work that next year because I wasn't eligible. And then for the 2017 program through 2019, I worked as a ATA to the HTA of the program for the acting intensive that later became 18 days. And this is all at Yale University. So I do have like a little notebook that I'm going to be explaining some things in. I kind of organized what my experience was as a student and then what my experience was as a staff member. So I'm going to be putting the like timestamps of when I'm talking about things down in the description so you guys can skip through if you're just interested in the student perspective or if you're looking for a staff perspective deciding whether or not you would like to work with NSLC. So I'm gonna get comfortable, but if I'm looking down, this is why. So I'm gonna start out with my experience as a student. So as I said, I went to the first ever acting intensive program that they did at Yale University. Because it was the first one, there were some kinks in the program that I will talk about that they have meshed out. I also talked about this in my first staff video talking about my experience. Before I went to NSLC, I was deciding my junior year of high school whether or not I wanted to be a musical theater major, whether I wanted to do theater as a career, what I wanted to do with my life, and what my plan was. And this trip was basically my deciding factor in whether or not I actually wanted to be an actor in my career. And for me, it ended up confirming that I did want to do theater with my life and that I was passionate about this thing and I wanted to get a degree in theater. But for a lot of the people who I went to the program with, it decided the opposite, which is just as valid, and I'm assuming they had just as good of an experience to be able to do theater in that kind of a setting, but they figured out that they didn't want to be taking college level classes in these subjects and they didn't want to be doing this necessarily as their career portion of their life. So as I said, it was 21 days long. It is now moved to, I believe, still an 18-day program. And it was the first longer program that they had ever done. So that's also something that makes my experience a little bit different because we had 4 core classes in like voice and diction, voice and speech, I would say, text analysis, scene study, character analysis, those kinds of things. We had 4 core classes that we were rotating, and those classes were giving us homework. We didn't have a lot of downtime to be able to work on things outside of class, and so they ended up adjusting the amount of classes that we took because of that and kind of canceling some classes, so we had some extra time to be able to complete the stuff we needed to complete and not stay up until 2 in the morning every night. And then we also did a devised theater piece. So we created our own costumes, set, we designed kind of the lighting, how the lighting was gonna work, if we were using any music. We completely wrote our own script, all surrounding a general kind of theme. I believe our theme was the American Dream, if I'm thinking about that correctly. I've gone through 4 years of devised theater themes, so excuse me if I have that incorrect, but I believe no, that's actually wrong. That was the first year that I worked. Our theme was like inciting moments of war, I believe. Inciting incidents, something like that. So the moment where like things kind of turn around and everything changes. That was our theme. And so we wrote a really amazing piece. I still have this like voice memo on my phone of some of my friends in my group like joking around and writing our piece and making funny voices and all that kind of stuff. And it really just solidified for me that I wanted to do theater with my life. I loved the grind of it. I loved all the hard work. I loved the atmosphere, the socialization aspects. We also got to see 3 Broadway shows, which is really incredible. I've seen a lot of Broadway shows because of NSLC, and I would never have been able to see as many as I have without them. For a lot of people in my group, it was also their first Broadway show that they had ever seen, and a lot of my future students after that had also experienced it being their first Broadway show, which I think is just an incredible experience to have, or your first time in New York City. Being at Yale University, it's really easy. It takes like 3 hours on a bus to get to New York City. So that was always really, really fun, and the staff members that were there when I was a student were incredible. They were all so dedicated to helping us and helping us learn. And the reason why I decided to go back to NSLC so many times is because Joel Hilchi, who is the leadership facilitator, because you're also doing leadership classes as well. It's a leadership conference, so you have your academic portion, and then you also have the leadership sessions, which are just as important and give you just as much information and knowledge as your other academic portion. And then you find like the things that go with each of them and intermingle and bring all that in together. But the thing that we like to say about NSLC is that it's the place where you can be your best self. And I will absolutely say that's definitely 100% true. When I went as a student, it was the first place that really felt like I could be myself fully and have anyone who was around me accept who I was. It was also the first place where I had found so many people who were interested in the same exact career path as me, whether they ended up going into that career path or not. There were so many people who were just as dedicated and passionate about theater, and that's something really hard to find in a small town. That's something that not everyone in my high school was as dedicated to and took theater as seriously as I did. And finding that and realizing that there are people who are just as passionate about the thing that you are passionate about is honestly just priceless. As I said, there were a lot of people who ended up going into theater. I have friends from that session that I went to who went to NYU, who went to AMDA, who went to theater schools all over the country and honestly the world as well, because they do have international opportunities and students who come internationally. And then there are people who also didn't go into theater and went into neuroscience or biology or history or anything like that and are still living their best life. And whether they figured it out from the program or not, they figured out that theater was not what they wanted to do with their career. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the logistics of being a student, especially before the fact. I talked about this in one of my previous videos about NSLC, but I'm not sure how they assess the process of people getting into the program anymore. When I was a student, you had like a little pamphlet that was sent to you either based on your SAT or PSAT scores, or based on a teacher at your school that had already had like a student go through the program and then they were recommended so they could recommend more people to the program. But I got this pamphlet in the mail and I saw that they had an acting intensive, and I talked to my parents about it and basically phrased it that this was going to be the deciding factor of whether or not I actually wanted to go to theater school. And I was lucky enough to have parents who could afford to pay for me to go to this program. And that's something that I will say, is that it is definitely a privilege to be able to afford to go to NSLC. It is $5,000, around that amount, to pay for an 18-day program. I'm not sure about the 9-day programs. I'm assuming they're around $2,500 to $3,000-ish. That includes food at Yale, that includes your housing, that includes the program as a whole and tickets and everything like that. It just doesn't include if, you know, we go to New York City and you need to get lunch on your own and we didn't pack a lunch from Yale. So it's just like that, those kind of weird things. You could probably bring like $200 at minimum. If you're not buying anything else other than food, you could bring an extra $200 and you would be fine and you would survive and live. But if you want to buy coffee or buy snacks or get a souvenir in New York on Broadway or anything like that, you're probably going to need a little bit more spending money. I definitely did, because I wanted to spend money on things that I wanted, and I feel like that's valid. But if you are trying to budget for it, just know that that's the average cost. They do have scholarships available. You can apply for a scholarship. I believe you just have to like write some sort of essay. I don't know if you have to provide any information about, you know, financially why you need the scholarship, but it's not a guarantee and it's not necessarily a full scholarship. So just keep that in mind if you are applying, or you do get a spot, or you are on the wait list, or whatever your case may be. Think about the financial aspect. I know a lot of the people that I went to the program with ended up doing like a GoFundMe or a fundraiser where people donated money and helped them raise the amount of money that they needed to go to the program, and they were successful and able to still attend. But it's always something that you have to think about, or you have to talk to your parents about. That's the main thing, is talking to your parents about how you're going to be able to afford it. I also believe that right now, as far as I've seen from looking it up and talking to some of my staff member friends who are still working with NSLC, last summer they were unable to run any of the programs, I don't believe. I know the acting intensive did not happen, which is really, really sad, and I feel bad for any of the people who may have signed up for the program and not been able to do that because of COVID. And this year, I believe, is a similar case. When I was looking it up, at least with like Yale University, I think all of the things at Yale University are canceled. I think all of the programs at most universities that happen over the summer are probably canceled. Hopefully next year that won't be the case. So if you are, this is more of a next year kind of thing, because if you were looking to get into this program, you already would have had to sign up or be on the wait list. But I don't believe, so I have worked at and went to the program at Yale University because that's the only place that had an 18-day program. And now I believe that they are switching it over to Fordham University in New York City, which also previously had a 9-day just like general theater program. The acting intensive is a little bit more specific and a little bit more refined to acting, whereas the theater program was more of like general. You got to do a bunch of different things within the theater. It wasn't just acting specific, as far as I know. So I think that location-wise, the location has changed. I don't know if that was a last year thing or if that's just happened this year and they were trying to do that this year to try and have the program happen even if Yale University was closed. But I think that that is, I wouldn't say a better situation. I love Yale. I love Yale's campus. I talk about the fact that I auditioned for Yale's master's program after working at Yale for so long, but it's definitely more convenient to be able to see what living in a city is like when you're auditioning and when you're, you know, if you were actually in college for theater in a city, that's what life would be like. You would be living in a dorm and you'd have to walk around and get used to where you're living and where you have to commute to and everything like that. And it's also more convenient, I feel like, for taking students to shows and things like that, because you're right there and you don't have to, you know, drive for 3 hours in order to get to the place that you need to go. So that is my experience as a student. It was honestly one of the best theater experiences of my life, and as I said, it definitely solidified the fact that I wanted to be an actor and that I wanted to do this for real and I wanted to go to school for it. So if you are debating going, whether it's an acting program or any of the other programs, I would absolutely recommend going to NSLC. As a student, it's an incredible experience. The staff is always exceptionally good at their jobs. They are working to give you the best experience that you possibly can. And a lot of them are really very good in the fields that they are studying in. So they're knowledgeable and they're ready to support you and teach you all that they know. My great experience as a student in the program is one of the reasons why I so eagerly wanted to return and become a staff member and give back to the program that had given me so much. Okay, so welcome to the staff member portion of this video. So I wanted to talk about my experience. I'm just gonna kind of go through how I interviewed for the program, what happened, whether I got the job or not, all that information, and kind of how I got to be a part of the NSLC staff. I was very passionate about NSLC after I left and was very eager to apply during my freshman year of college to be an ATA. So an ATA is an assistant team advisor. Team advisor is their like general camp counselor job, I would say. If you're comparing it to something, it's just a camp counselor job. So an ATA is like an assistant camp counselor. You don't run a group by yourself, but you do assist a TA and help them out, and you guys kind of co-lead whatever team of students you're working with. Usually the ATAs are younger, so you're either a freshman going into your sophomore year, a sophomore going into your junior year of college. So I applied during the winter of my freshman year. and I got an interview, which was amazing. You had to fill out like a bunch of questions just about like yourself and how you would deal with certain situations with students, and also some theater related questions that I'm sure if you're not applying for acting or theater, you would be filling out questions relating to whatever subject you're going to be teaching and mentoring during your time at NSLC. I interviewed, I think it went really well. I interviewed a few times with a few different people, and it was all over the phone. Obviously, they can't do anything in person. I don't believe I did any like Zoom interviews, which is so funny because now I'm sure that that's kind of the thing that they do. But it was all just like on the phone, which was super nerve-wracking for me because I had never really had to interview for a job. I am from a small town, so like I got my job because of my neighbors, and then I had another job that was like more of a real person job, and I got that because of my mom. So I had never really had to interview for a job, and I never really knew how to interview well, but I think I did a pretty good job, and I did get the job in the end. So I think that they also thought I did a good job, but I had a little bit of a bumpy road to get there. So something that is a logistical aspect of NSLC is that obviously they don't know how many kids are going to sign up. They have enough room for probably like 80 plus kids in the program as a whole, but they can't hire everyone that they need to hire until they know or have an estimate on what number of kids they're going to have. So I got through the interview process, and then I got a phone call basically saying that they didn't think they were going to be able to hire me because they didn't think they were going to have enough kids for the staff member like ratio to be correct. So I believe we had 7 total staff members that year. So we had 4 TAs, 1 HTA who's the head TA, and then 2 ATAs. So basically you have 5 people leading the groups and 5 groups of students with around like 11 to 12 kids in each group, and then you have 2 ATAs that go wherever basically they're needed. And so they had hired another ATA, and they didn't know if they were going to need me because they didn't know if they were going to have enough students. So I was really devastated. I was frustrated because I thought I was going to have this job, and I really wanted to be able to be a part of the program that had given me so much, as I said, and I just really clicked and wanted to go back to NSLC and wanted to experience that whole thing again. I really gave up for a little bit and thought I wasn't going to get it, and then probably like maybe a month later I got another phone call that said that they had room for me and that they needed me and that they were offering me the job, and I took it. And I was an ATA. I became really good friends with my fellow ATA, Ellie. I love them. They're great, and I am still like in contact with them today and a lot of other people that I have worked with, which is really wonderful. And so it was a great summer. I worked as an ATA. It was hard, but it was also interesting to establish that difference between you and the students that you were with, because I was so close in age to them. I was 19, and a lot of them were like 16, 17. I don't know if we had any 18-year-olds, but they're in that age range. So they're really only a few years younger than me, and figuring out that dynamic of like how things work when you're technically like an authority figure, but not really an authority figure, and how all of that works was very interesting for me. And it really helped me to be able to work with high schoolers and how to teach them and also be relatable and understand them, and that was a great experience. And then I applied the next year, same thing, but I wanted to be a TA that next year. I was older, I had had the experience of being an ATA, and so I felt like I was prepared to run my own group. And so I applied again, very similar questions, filled them out, had a couple of interviews, same sort of thing, and I was offered a TA position. And once again, it was really fun. I got to run my own group. I was by myself, so I didn't have anyone else helping me out or anything like that, and it was a lot of fun, and it was hard work, but a lot of fun and definitely worth it. And the times that I was on the staff, they had switched it over to 18 days, and so it's only an 18-day program now, but it's a lot. It's exhausting. You are mentally and physically exhausted because you're basically working 24/7, 24 hours every single day. And the other programs get breaks because they are only going for 9 days or 9 or 10 days at a time. I think there are some a little bit longer programs, but usually 9 or 10 days at a time, and then they have like a 3 or 4 day break. So very different to what you would have as like a regular staff member. So that was my experience, and then I once again enjoyed my time so much there that the next year I was asked to reapply as an HTA. So HTA is basically the head TA. You are kind of the leader of the TAs, and then you have the program director, who is everyone's leader, but you work a lot more closely with the program director. You're less involved a little bit with the students, but you're more of like the halfway point between the program director and the TAs. And that was a really great experience for me as well. I had an ATA, Michael, who was the best human. He's just the best. All of the staff that I have had the privilege to work with have been incredible. They're all so dedicated to what they do, and they just get it, and we just vibe and we understand each other, and it was always such a great experience to come back and see some of the same people that I had worked with in the previous year, not only in my own program, but in other programs as well. It was so much fun, and the staff really gets a strong bond, especially because you go a little bit before the students come, so you're training for a little less than a week beforehand, and it's so much fun to be able to spend that time together too. It was definitely a more stressful experience being HTA, and although I think that I did a good job and I pride myself on my work at NSLC, I definitely think that I could have improved in a lot of areas, especially looking back on it almost 2 years later. And as you move up in the ranks, obviously you get paid a little bit more each year, and if you come back and are with them for longer years, like a longer amount of time, you will also get a little bonus because of that. But I would say if you're looking to make money, it's not the place for you. It's not that they don't pay you a lot. It's just that it's a little bit different being from the 18-day program versus being a staff member consistently throughout the summer. I definitely say that, like, if you're looking to make money and do your thing, that's worth it, but it's not. It's more about the experience and the quality of the experience for the students rather than me putting away money for college or my career after college or anything like that. I would also say that sometimes it's hard to get other jobs during the summer, specifically with the 18-day program, because it's smack dab in the middle. It's usually in late July, mid-July into August, and so it's kind of hard to say to a place, okay, I need this job, but only for a month and a half to 2 months, and then I'm going back to college after I work at NSLC. So good luck. But if you have a like summer job already established, I'm sure that would be much easier. But just logistically, to let people know, I feel like that's something that you need to know if you are only doing, you know, one session. If you're doing like all 4 or 5 sessions that they have in the summer, that's a little bit different because that's the whole entire summer. But when you're just doing like a technically 21 days with the staff training days, like a 21-day chunk, it's kind of hard to have another job. So that is basically my experience as a staff member. The reason why I decided to not kind of go back, I did actually apply for the year last year. Yes, I applied for last year, but I was still, I think, inside really debating about whether or not I wanted to go back, because I would have just graduated, and it kind of goes back and forth of whether staff members will come back after they've graduated. And so I applied, but I was kind of debating whether or not I wanted to come back, and then COVID hit. So I was not offered the job back for my 4th year, but COVID hit and they ended up not being able to do NSLC anyway, and then obviously this year they're not able to do it either. But I am actually kind of grateful for that, because I obviously, you know, would have loved to go back and loved to have had the opportunity to go back again, but I am glad that I had like a solid job figured out and I was able to work at a restaurant and save up a lot of money instead, whereas that breaking up of that job and being gone would have kind of messed up the rest of my future money saving. But it's really disappointing that that ended up happening, and I feel so bad for the people who are staff members who are working in any of those kinds of situations. I know it's been really hard on a lot of summer camps and just conference kind of stuff in general, or people in general having jobs. Like, it's really, really hard right now, and I hope that everyone is surviving as well as they can be. But I'm very grateful to be where I am today, and I definitely would not be the person that I am right now, and I would not be where I am right now or pursuing what I'm pursuing without, obviously, you know, my history of people who have helped me. But NSLC was a huge, huge part of my life and still continues to be a huge part of my life. And I hope that this video helped you if you are interested in being a student or being a staff member on the NSLC team. It is truly a family, and I cannot recommend doing it enough. Truly one of the best experiences of my life. If you guys have any questions, or if you have experience with NSLC, whether that's as a student or a staff member, please comment down below. Please keep the conversation going. I always will be replying to any questions that I can answer. Obviously, again, just want to say that I have not worked at the program in a little bit. I also have not gone to the program in a very long time. So some of the things that I may be talking about may be inaccurate. So if you have any knowledge that is more advanced than mine, please let us know down below. If you guys like this video, you can give it a thumbs up and subscribe down below for more. If you'd like to, you can check out my previous video on this side of the screen and my previous vlog on that side of the screen. I hope you guys are staying safe and healthy and happy, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.